Good morning, people. Good morning. Let me move this up closer. Yes, good morning, people. Good morning. Oops. This is Spirit Journey. Yes, I'm up early. It's um, it's Monday morning, early Monday morning, here in New York City. It is September 12th, 2022, and the time is now 2:41 a.m. in the morning. Yes, I hope everything is going well with you all. What I'm going to talk about today, more thoughts about, well, as most of us know, um, the Queen Elizabeth II had passed away, and I was just watching a video. They're driving the hearse to a new location, and so it had me thinking. And I also want to talk about the 9/11. Yesterday was the anniversary, the 21st anniversary of um, that happening. Can't believe it. So I'm going to talk about a little about both. I'm going to talk about the 9/11 first. I'm not going to talk long about it. That's because I really want to talk about the Commonwealth nations. I mean, there's different terminology for the Commonwealth. I mean, they're slightly different. There's the British Commonwealth, and then I think they call it the Commonwealth of Nations. But it's the Commonwealth of Nations that I think I want to focus on, because it's a little different, but in the end, everything's all the same. And how it affects some people, and what you should all be doing. What you have to choose for yourself what you want to do. And so let me just first talk about the 9/11. Since I live in the United States, I'm a U.S. citizen, and that was just yesterday. And I went to see family yesterday. I had overall a good day yesterday. I did get up early, and I walked my dogs a little bit. And I came back, and I head out to see some family of mine. Yeah, it was very quiet, and you saw some people wearing black, and it was the type of black that not like for a fashion statement. Yes, good morning, viewer. Good morning, good morning. Let me know if you can hear me well. Hope your day is going well. I'm just going to talk a little bit about, the 9/11 in the United States. Since I'm here in the States, then I want to talk about the Commonwealth nations, referring to, the British subjects and all that stuff. How does it affect the Commonwealth nations in the Caribbean, Asia, Africa? I want to talk about that. That's what I really want to talk about. But since it's the day after 9/11, I just want to talk a little bit about what New York was like yesterday. It was quiet. Yeah, I got up early, early enough, walked the dogs. And when I went out, it was quiet. Yeah, it was very quiet. I saw one person wearing all black. And how is one? I don't know, wearing black could be like a fashion statement, some occupations, you wear black. But some people, when they wear black, you know it's in mourning. You know, it's a different feel. It's a different feel entirely. So I remember seeing two people, they were both women. And they had a somberness about them. Yeah, I didn't see that, it wasn't really that many people out. It started drizzling. Yeah, it was drizzling all day. And I guess that also would make something kind of feeling somber, you know. Um, Taking the train, really something. New York City is changing so. I took the train that I would normally take to see my family, you know, and it's like a whole new population. I just had that feel on the train. Everyone seemed to be from somewhere else. Everyone, in my perception, seemed that they were new in the city, new in the country. Imagine 21 years ago yesterday was that very fateful day. It was on a Tuesday. I remember that very, very clearly, that it was a Tuesday. Because I was going to do something that Monday. But I said, you know, I'm not going to do it today. I'm going to do it tomorrow. I just wasn't mentally ready to do a particular thing. And when I woke up early that Tuesday morning around 2 o'clock. Yeah, I think it was 2 o'clock in the morning. Oh, wow. It's 2:49 right now, 2:49 a.m. right now. Isn't that something? But I think it was 2 o'clock on the nose. I woke up and I was crying. I cried for about 5 hours. Yes, I did. I felt upset. I was upset with my life. And I'm just talking out to the universe at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I just didn't know what to do with my life. And then I fell asleep at 7 o'clock in the morning. And roughly 2 hours later, I awake, go downstairs, and I was meeting a family member who was in the kitchen, and they said something happened to the Twin Towers. I said, oh. So I go in the room where we have the television, and I see like this big hole in the building, and a lot of smoke, I remember. And I remember the newscaster. I don't remember what channel the TV was on, but it was a man. And I knew that what he was saying, he didn't really mean. Like he was saying, oh, you know, it's probably an accident, you know, problem with something with the pilot or something. And I'm thinking, you're right, you know, that like he was trying to sound like, oh, you know, this is, you know, some dreadful accident, you know. And I'm saying to myself, he knows that's not an accident. So why is he saying like that? That's what I'm thinking. And he's just trying to sound proactive, whatever. And then, boom, you see a plane coming and hitting the second building. And that's when history really happened. I remember that moment. So it was just approaching 9 o'clock when I went down. So maybe it was like 3 minutes to 9 or something like that. Yeah, I forget when the second plane. It was just a few. Let's see. It was like a quarter to nine. The first plane hit, and then the second plane hit. It was roughly nine. It was approaching 9 o'clock or something. I forget. Anyone who remembers what time the second plane hit, let me know. And the rest was history. And I remember, um, yeah, that one family member had was doing volunteer work, and they left for the day. And by 10:30, what's that? 10 o'clock. So about an hour after the first plane, the second plane hit, was when the tower fell. The first tower fell at 9 o'clock. But interesting, the building that fell first was the last one, I think, that fell. It was something like it was the opposite. Like the first one that got hit wasn't the first one that fell. It was the second one that got hit, was the first one that fell, and then about a half an hour after that, the other building fell. And I remember when the first one hit around 10 o'clock, I ran upstairs and I told my family member, and I remember how I said it. Said the building fell. The building, the twin tower fell. I remember I said it like that. It came across really weird. I think I just couldn't believe. I couldn't believe it, people. When it fell. See, 2 weeks before what we call 9/11, and I think we call it 9/11. See, in New York City, when you're calling for an emergency, it's 911, or we call it 9/11, but it's 911. And so the day the incident happened was September 11th. So I say that for those of you who may not know what they mean by 911 or 9/11. 9/11 is referring to the Twin Towers, when the planes hit the Twin Towers, and then they collapse. And so they call it 9/11, really referring to 911, when you're calling for help for the cops, for an emergency. 911 is the number you dial when you need help, when you need an ambulance or you need the police, things like that. So we call it 9/11 for sure, 9/11, and it happened on a Tuesday. Yeah, for me, the day of the week is very important. So, because for me, with how I set up things in my head, I guess it was based when I was a student. Certain days that, like, usually we had an exam on Friday or that Monday, and so those days were very important to me, in setting up how the week is going to go. So the day of the week back then for me was very important. It's how I, guided things, in my life. Yeah, it affected many people, 9/11. When you see an event happen on television, things affect other people. It has a ripple effect. One thing, travel. It affected travel. The trains stopped because, again, with the Twin Towers down there, when the buildings collapse, and down there's water. It's right, it's right in downtown Manhattan, and it's a lower sea level. The sea level, a lot of water, and you had the fire trucks. So it was flooding down there, and so all the water has to go somewhere. And some of those trains, if I heard right, got stuck under that under the Twin Towers. There were trains under there. See, everything just went boom. You didn't get a warning. That first thing hit, boom. And so everything's at a standstill. And then the collapse, especially the collapse of the buildings. So they had to like, you know, the amount of communication that had to go on, you know, because you have to alarm, you know, you have to have a system set up when there's a big emergency. And no one knew that the building's going to fall. I never sensed it. I never sensed that anything was going to fall. That these buildings were so tremendous. They were well constructed. You would never imagine it falling, and both of them fall. And not only did those two buildings fall, but Building 7. And why that also stands out to me with Building 7 was I used to work at Building 7. I had about 6 weeks prior just returned back to New York City. I was living in Hawaii, and I had just come back, and I was trying to say, you know, it was a culture shock coming back to New York. I was away for about 3.5 years. And there was a bit of a culture shock, even though I'm born and raised in New York City. And then I went away for a couple of years, and then I came back. And it took me mentally a while, you know, to get reacclimated mentally, and how I dressed now had to change, you know. And so I was trying to get my old job back at Building 7. 2 weeks before 9/11 happened, I went to Building 7 to talk to Human Resources where I used to work, if I could work, you know, start working with them again. And I wasn't allowed upstairs. The front desk, it was a big building, it was a high-rise building, Building 7, 40-something stories. And they redid the lobby. Yes, good morning, viewer, good morning. Yes, I'm talking about 9/11, and I also will be talking about the Commonwealth. But since yesterday was 9/11, I'm just talking about 9/11 right now, but I will be talking about the Commonwealth, the British colonies, the Commonwealth nations and things like that, you know, the Caribbean, Asia, Africa. I'm going to talk about that. But yes, it was the 9/11 anniversary, 21st anniversary. So I'm just going to talk about them first, since I live here in New York City. So with the Building 7, you know, 2 weeks prior to the incident, yeah, security was real tight, people. They didn't allow, things were already changing, evidently. And I mean, when I worked, you know, before the 9/11 thing happened, things were, you know, open. You didn't have to like I don't remember really having to sign in or so, you know, security. No, it's very lax. Things were open. You could go in any, you know, company, go in the human resources, fill out an application, blah blah blah. It was old school. Things were old school. But that day, that 2 weeks prior to the incident, it was on a Wednesday. I remember I went on a Wednesday to submit my application. They said, I'm sorry, but no one's allowed upstairs. Just leave your resume down at the lobby. And that's what I did. And then I left. And so the day of 9/11, it was after 5. And you know, Building 7, the building I used to work in, fell. But the news didn't really want to cover that. I remember I was glued to that TV set for 2 weeks, When 9/11 happened, I was glued to the television for 2 solid weeks. And then I went out and about. Then I went downtown. Yeah. After that, I took the train into the city to see for myself what it really looked like down there. Yeah, you couldn't take Greenwich Street going down. Greenwich Street goes right in the center of where it's the middle of the island, and you could see all the way down. They didn't let people from south of Canal Street to enter that way. So north of Canal Street, you're able to at that point be on Greenwich. I think it's Greenwich Street or Greenwich Avenue. Greenwich. That's how I pronounce it. Um, yeah. So when I got down there, I thought, okay, I want to look in, where Building 7 was, which would be Greenwich Street. It runs right into Greenwich Street, and you see this big pile of rubble. Yeah, it looked like that. Big pile of rubble, and that was Building 7. And the news reporters didn't really want to talk about that. How did Building 7 fall when no plane hit it? And it imploded on itself. While my battery's getting low, just a moment. Okay, I have to plug it in. Just take me a second. Or maybe more than a second. Oh, brother. I have to move something. So I have to put the plug in. Just trying to move things over so I could put the plug in. Shit. Sorry, you didn't hear that word. Sorry. Have to get this, need a bit longer plug. Sorry about that. Yeah, so the media pretty much blocked that information. They didn't want to talk about that. See, there's going to be things. Oh, trying to. So I'm just trying to get comfortable here. See, a lot of times the media doesn't want to talk about certain things. It doesn't. And you would really never know anything happened about Building 7. And they just said it so nonchalant. That was a major event, Building number 7. And they didn't show that building falling when it fell. I remember they'd said something like there was fires or something, and but when you later, I think it was a couple of years later. See, the media, the day of, they just focus, like they had a loop, like they kept like a loop. You saw, like the plane hit, and then when it was falling, you see people running, and it was like a loop over and over again. And that's what they showed. But they didn't show in perspective what was going on, like when Building 7 fell. I saw that years later, Building 7. Oh, yeah, so what also I was going to say, yeah, so when an event happens, people, it affects other things. It doesn't just affect the immediate area. People couldn't take the trains. Certain, it was blocked off. And there was flooding. Again, all the water, because all those fire trucks, it was a lot of destruction. And then, but you still had those other fire trucks and putting water in. So it was flooding. And water was going in. You learn about that. I mean, when that happened, you don't know what the infrastructure was happening. But later on, they were saying that people got trapped below, and people drowned. Um, yeah, and communication also. Yeah, cell phones. I mean, people had cell phone, and I had a cell phone, the analog phone, um, the candy bar style. Well, communication was off because that tower, the twin towers, had the cell phone connection. So it did affect communication. But yeah, a lot of people have their house phone. It's not like today. Not like today. Well, people may have a cell phone, but they may not have a house phone. Especially the teenagers and people like that. They may not have a house phone. They just depended on their cell phone. Jobs. People lost their jobs. I knew of someone who uh, worked in that vicinity at the World Trade Center. The World Trade Center was a series of buildings. It wasn't just those twin towers. It was the twin towers were the main fixture, but you had other buildings surrounding it. And some of those people worked in those other buildings, and it got destroyed. And I remember what it looked like when I went down 2 weeks after the melee. It like one of the buildings, like they had a bookstore that I used to go into. I loved it, and it looked like as if like a giant dinosaur, I call it, must have grabbed the building and pulled it out. Because it looked like things were being pulled and all that, like someone was attacked it. Yeah, it looked really weird. It was so mangled. That's what I'm getting. It looked so mangled, the buildings, that, the shorter buildings. And this person that I knew, she was to work. It was um, a place called Dwayne Reed. It's like a store. Dwayne Reed down here. It's a very big chain outlet. They're all over the place. They sell uh, foods, candies, um, toiletries. It's a really neat store. And she lost her job. And she had to live in a homeless shelter. Yeah, people became homeless. Yeah, people who lived in those houses, the apartment units around the 9/11, World Trade Center complex. Yeah, it's a big, big area. It was humongous. And people lost their homes overnight. People lost jobs overnight. When that happens, they're not going to like pay you. You're left on your own. Always remember that. Like, it was really something to become homeless, jobless overnight. I met people, yeah, interesting enough, I had to get a job at this, and I knew the only place where I could get a job, because see, people weren't hiring now, because it messed over the economy overnight. And so the only place I knew I could find a job, I was some things that I really don't want to talk about, let, but what I will say, I felt I was forced to find a job, and so I got a job across, get this, across the street from World Trade Center in a department store. Oh yes, I did. I knew if I applied for it, I would get a job. I was desperate for a job. I was desperate. Yes, so I got the job, but I got sick. Yes, I got sick. My glands in my neck swelled up overnight. Yeah, it happened. Yeah. And I think it was a blessing in disguise when I got fired. It was a blessing in disguise. And I'm wondering, the people here, the people who didn't get well, who got sick working down there. Yeah, people were getting sick. Evident, I got sick. Yeah, so it affects everything. When you see when you see an event like this, or natural disaster, it affects many industries. It affects people's lives. It affects families. And yes, it affected my life. Everything. Industries change. Communication changes. Um, travel changes. Everything changes. But now, if you go downtown, where the World Trade Center, it is gorgeous. Yeah, I've been there just a handful of times. Uh, being back, yeah, I've been back now 21 years. 21, could you imagine? 21 years. It went so fast. I asked myself, what happened? Where did the 21 years go? And I can't say. I can't say what happened. But 21 years ago, September 11th, 2001 happened. And it changed everything overnight. But it tried to get back on swing. It did. It tried to get back on swing, and I tried to get my life in order. And then I got this place here. A little over a year later, I got this place where I am now. And I'm very grateful of getting this place. But yeah, so why I mentioned this story like this, because yes, yesterday was September 11th, the 21st anniversary of that fateful event. And to let you know how it affects people. It affected people. And when, just watching on TV, it's not all what happened. It affected people's lives. People became homeless. People lost their jobs, lost their homes overnight. And it was toxic down there. Toxic. And then I remember they were trying to get the Clintons, the former president. Yeah, he lived in New York. He worked in Harlem. He had a building in Harlem at that time, if I remember right. Yeah. And he was trying to encourage people that you should go downtown and spend your money. How foolish. Yeah, it was toxic down there, people. See, they wanted you to do commerce, knowing that it had all that toxic poison. People were dying of cancer. I know of people who have respiratory problems, but because they worked north of Canal Street, they didn't qualify for reimbursement. Yeah, this thing affected a lot of people. A lot of people. Yep. And a lot of, in my opinion, it was a cover-up. And they wanted you to believe that certain people, because of their religion, did a particular thing. And when the investigation, you had professionals, people who knew about certain chemicals and, engineers. They said, this is not the true narrative. this was not the narrative, the true narrative, what's being pushed. So just saying, people, just saying. And it's very sad how greed affects other people's lives. So that's my thoughts about the 9/11. Okay, it affected people's lives. And yet people try to market and want you to believe in them so that you could encourage people. So they want about people's safety and the toxic poison. That's all in your head. They want to say it's all in your head. So you can pay. You don't think those people had insurance? Yeah, some of these people, they had insurance, but see, they were selfish. Many of them wanted you to buy down there. What about this? The present, 2 years with the jab, if you know what I'm talking about. Right? And you have to stay at home. It's like, wow. So they want you to stay at home for that pathogen. See, the word is getting out. People are being lied to. People are being lied to. Oh, and let me go on. Let me go on new talk. So now I want to talk about what I really want to talk about the Commonwealth nations. The distinction. I learned that there is a distinction. There's the British Commonwealth, and then I think they call it the Commonwealth of Nations. Who I really want to focus on, I think the category is the Commonwealth of Nations. A lot of Caribbean nations like Jamaica, the British Virgin Islands, India. Thinking, India is both. India is both a British Commonwealth and Commonwealth of Nations. Some of them have both categories. I saw over the internet. But yeah, you can look on the internet on the British Commonwealth and the Commonwealth of Nations. Which nations are they? Yeah, I saw a map, and wow. Someone referred to me a link, and thank you, thank you, viewer, for sharing the link with me. It was a video. This speaker about a black speaker talked about this Commonwealth and black people in general. Black people and under the British flag. And he said a lot of truths out there. Just before I doing this live stream, I was watching the Queen Elizabeth II's casket. The hearse was driving it to the new location. And so I said, let me do another video. I did a video maybe 2 days ago, live stream two or three, the day of her passing. I did a quick live stream when I just learned of the event. And I'm a person, I like to share my feelings. My feelings are my feelings. I have a lot of mixed feelings. It's like being in I've never been in prison before or jail before, but I feel as if, imagine that if you had been in prison all your life, and maybe even a little bit the what do you call it, the security guards there, maybe one of them might took pity on you, whatever. You maybe talk a little bit, and maybe they gave you extra water one day or something. So there is what you call, I guess, this what they call the Stockholm syndrome. Stockholm, when you start to look up to your captors or your oppressors. um I think me as a black American woman from New York City, the United States used to be a British colony. I mean, parts of what we call the United States. You remember the 13 colonies? They were British colonies. The United States was a British colony, and then there was the what they call the War of Independence, or our 4th of July, and we broke ties, broke certain things from Britain. But the U.S. has very strong ties still to Britain. Let me repeat. Even though the U.S. had the War of Independence from Britain, the monarchy, but it still has ties. So it's like anything that happens in Britain, the press, the media loves Britain. It follows Britain everywhere. It doesn't follow any other nation that has a monarchy. Nope. There are other kings and queens, or royalty in other countries, but the U.S. doesn't follow it. The U.S. has a love affair for the United Kingdom, or Britain. And so, yes, the U.S. media is covering the Queen's passing like you wouldn't believe. It is very, do you guys agree? Do you see it on your TV, those of you who are here in the U.S.? Yeah, it is very, very, they're covering it, and they're very positive about her. Very. They love the Queen. Oh, yeah. And so it never really shared any, I mean, yes, it did talk about Prince Andrew as it pertained to that fellow who mysteriously died in prison. That was about 2 years ago. Yeah. So, but even how it like Ghislaine, that woman named Ghislaine, it didn't have the cameras in the courtroom. See, the media has its favorites. The media here has its favorites, and if they like you, they will try to not cover, to try to protect your honor. It's really something. They smear people, they smear the innocent, but they protect the wicked. In just my opinion. It's just my opinion. It's just what I noticed. And the American media loves to shame black people, in my opinion. It loves to get that camera in that courtroom if it's a black man. Whether true or false, it would get that camera. It loves to shame certain people. But anyway, with the Commonwealth nations, there are a whole slew of nations under the British flag that the former queen that just passed, may she rest in peace. I just want to make it clear. I mean, I want to be clear in this. And again, I this channel is also to express my feelings and understanding and journey, my spiritual journey in this life. Um, I was trained to respect my elders. That's me. I'm the age that I am. I'll be 60 years old this year, the end of this year, and I'm trained that your elders you respect. You don't have to love them, but you have to respect the elderly. And she is, the former queen was an older person. She's even older than my mother. She's 3 years older than my mother. And people of a certain generation, we're trained certain things about how you talk of and have reverence for certain things in your training. Doesn't mean that you love that person, but that certain things you conduct yourself a certain way. And also I guess in my training, certain things you don't say about the dead. So it is a challenge for me when I hear someone do contrary. It does stand out to me, and it does kind of shock me. Now again, I wasn't raised under the British flag, and but I imagine you have people who were, and I'm learning. It's really interesting, people, by perspective. If for those people who were born and raised under the British flag, who were part of what you call the Commonwealth of Nations or the British Commonwealth, you would maybe probably have a different perspective. And that's what I was reading when I looked um, at several videos and was reading the responses of the people. And like I used to watch David Icke. He used to be on YouTube, but his channel was pulled because, see, he openly criticized the royal family and who his research says who they are. Yes, so but because the media in general is very kind to the British family, it censors very greatly. It censors. Oh, I gotta sit up. My shoulder's hurting. Oh, yeah, my batteries were low, but I have to reposition myself. Oh, brother. Wow. Yeah, my shoulder. Yep. Let me move over. Sorry about that. I'm just repositioning myself. Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry about that. I just have to reposition myself. Yeah, my battery it's the plug is on, and so I have to um, charge it up again because doing a live stream really sucks out the battery. Okay, that's a little better. But yes, I hope you guys can hear me still. So, yeah, I'm seeing with some of the responses of the the sudden death of the former queen. Um, you have a lot of angry people, and so for all these years, they try to squash a lot of news. But now that she passed, people are sharing how they really felt. And no, this video is not will not be about slamming, you know, using potty language. No, I'm not about that. But that I do have feelings about it. It's a lot of mixed feelings. See, I was programmed, very programmed. Live in America, you get programmed. If you're a black person in America, and what you know, we are both programmed to think and act certain ways, and to feel certain ways about ourselves. So yes, there is a thing called white supremacy. But the people who use that term white supremacy, many of those people, in my opinion, are communists. They're people who want to um, just provoke your anger. They really don't care about you, but they want you to get excited and angry about certain things. Yes, certain things you should be angry about, but certain people want to exploit your anger, and they use words to try to trigger you to rebel. You have, in my opinion, communists who want to take over the system. And then once they control those same people that help them get into power, they will remove. They're not your friend, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. I'm putting it out there. But yes, you have people who have valid concerns over uh, the ruling people of Great Britain or the UK or the you know the you know um, yeah, a lot of anger. What are they angry about? Um, I would say for the Caribbean and Africa in particular, Africa and the Caribbean suffered from slavery and colonialism. And when I see the wealth, like you see the royal family and you see the wealth, that crown, and they talked about where those jewels came from. And you have places like India, and that the big diamond or the stone in that uh, came from India, and that crown represents all the nations that they control. So when she puts on, and now when the king puts on that crown is a visual representation of those regions in the world where they control. And they always want you to be reminded that they are in control. Well, yeah, this a viewer of my channel sent me a link. Thank you for that link. If you're watching, yeah, it was, I think, to remind me of what that nation did. Because see, I did a video the day when she passed, and maybe they wanted me to be more reminded of what they did in history. Yeah, I don't want to sugarcoat anything, but this channel is it's not about slam and dunking. No, that's not my style. But I do want to give words of awareness, though, where this is going to lead black people in general. Black people in general. Um, yeah, you have a lot of hurting people. Uh, and I'm seeing through the comments, the live coverage that the news is giving regarding Queen Elizabeth, former Queen Elizabeth. Um, yeah, she did her contract.
She did that same job for 70 years, 70 years, over 70 years. So I have to give her that respect that at least she took a job seriously. And again, I am former military, and I love order, and I love precision. I love order. I always do, and that was one thing that I liked about the military. I love order, but I don't want to feel I'm being oppressed or taken advantage of, though. And so, even though they show a lot of order, but there is control, and more control than you may want. The program that the viewer showed me he's a black YouTuber, and he was sharing very frankly. He was very bold, an American fellow, and he talked about um, how her passing, for really, but for the blacks around the world to wake up. Yeah, there is mind control. Yes, I was definitely mind controlled. Definitely mind controlled. Like you don't get angry. It's so easy. It's like we don't want to offend them, but we offend ourselves. We offend other black people. We offend all the victims under the British flag. But see how we try to protect those who are in power? That's what you call mind control. And the movies that they make on Britain is a mind control thing. It is mind control. It it seduces you. I am I for these 40 plus years, I was seduced by the whole pageantry of the British royal family. I see. It's a brainwashing, and it seduces you to feel that they are better than you, and you have to listen. That they're in control, they're the boss, and you're not to think, and you to emulate and want to be who they are. But this is just a seduction, and uh, be you. Learn to be you and learn to love yourself. Yeah, a lot of people, in my opinion, who are under the British flag, the Commonwealth nations, or um, what do you call the British Commonwealth, they too are brainwashed by that system. That they act like robots, and they just serve that royal family. And you ask yourself, what do you get out of it? What do you get out of giving her your allegiance? What do they do for you? Like religion, what does it do for you, religion? Or are you supporting it? She had a residence that went on fire. And she didn't want to pay out of her own pocket to get her house rebuilt. Now she would be responsible getting her own fire insurance, right? But she didn't want to use it, evidently, and she was asking the public to pay for it. And I said, that's a no-no. I mean, wow. If that's your private home and you're one of the richest women on the planet, and you're going to, okay. But anyway, like, it's time to wake up. It's a wake-up time for all of us. All of us. See, there's a changing of the guards. What's happening now on the planet, there's a change of the guards that's happening, literally and spiritually. There is a change in a new system. And in my opinion, I think the new system is going to be even deadlier. But you know, the power is in your hand, just like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, that movie. The Wizard of Oz. Dorothy in the movie The Wizard of Oz always had the ability to go back home. She didn't trust herself that she was able to do it for herself. But she had to go through a process, people. We have to go through a process of awareness that we can do it on our own. You can rule yourself. You don't have to look up at anyone but yourself in the mirror. That you could steer your own ship. But they make you think that you have to look at them, that they have the answers. And I was like surprised. Like I thought because they have access, you know, the royal family have access to the best of schools. Did you know that King Charles or Prince Charles, I'm going to call him Prince Charles, that, you know, the former Prince Charles, let me give him that. He failed math 4 times. He had to repeat it 4 times. I would think that no, I'm not saying this to shame anybody, but it's a wake-up call. I thought in my mind that these people were geniuses, that they had high IQs, that they probably all were honor students. Did you know that's not so? But in my mind, see, in the program, see, I'm sharing this because we're programmed to think certain ways, and it's the program that keeps them in power. It's a program to make you think there's something greater than they are. And I'm letting us all know tonight, or this early morning, that they're not as smart as you think, but they have the ability to seduce you to think that they're bigger than they are. I had no idea. But I just heard that in his words. Former Prince Charles said he wasn't a good student. His subjects he didn't well. He was not a math person. But what the family was good at doing was facade. They have the uniforms, or you know, the medals. They have the expensive cars, they have the protocol, and all that sets up an illusion of grandeur, of supremacy. And by their behavior, they make you think there's something bigger than there are, and they're just like you. Yes, they have access to the best that education could buy, but it doesn't mean they're a good student. It just means that in Britain you get a pass and fail. You don't get a grade. It's either you pass or fail. Well, some of these people maybe just passed, and they're running countries. They're running the Commonwealth. They're running Britain. But yet, you're not allowed to say hello to them first. See, that's another mind control thing. Am I speaking the truth, people? You are not allowed to speak to royalty they have to speak to you first, and then you address them. You respond. You're not allowed to initiate, talk to them. See, that's also part of I'm better than you and part of the program. Don't you ask yourself, those of you who are born or have ancestry in the Caribbean? My background's from the Caribbean. And two of my grandmothers were physically born under the British flag. But you ask yourself in the Caribbean, there's overwhelmingly more people of color / black people in the Caribbean than white people. So how did they get so much power over all these centuries in the Caribbean, the white people? Even though they're outnumbered by black people or people of color. It's called mind control. They set up the illusion and they used fear. See, they had guns and they can threaten people, say, hey, I want you to beat up so-and-so for me because they didn't obey, and I want you all to watch. This is part of traumatizing people into submission. You know that there are a lot of people in the Caribbean, the British Caribbean, the Caribbean nations that fall under the Commonwealth of Nations, and they love the Queen. I mean, I was in a situation once. I used to live in St. Thomas, which is the part of the United States Virgin Islands, but you have in St. Thomas a lot of people from the colonies of Britain that live there, like people from Jamaica, Tortola, Anguilla, places like that, who were under the British flag. And this one woman that I knew, I lived in an apartment unit that was shared with the owner. I mean, the owner lived, how they had the house, the interior of the home was the owner's home, and then on the peripheral of the property were the apartment units, and one of which I rented from the owner. And one day, the husband and wife got in a vicious argument. I mean, they were yelling so loud, you heard everything. And the wife was angry. I forget what the actual comment was. The husband said something that offended her because he mentioned something about their queen, the Queen Elizabeth, and she flipped out, and they had a vicious argument, and they later did separate. They left. She left him. He was a very wicked guy too. Yeah, the owner, he was a wicked man. Now he was a wicked man, that person. What he did to people, openly. That was a vicious guy. But anyways, now the Queen. Now this was a Jamaican lady. If she's still alive now, she'd be in her mid to upper 80s. Yeah. Should be, I think, mid to upper 80s. And people of that generation were deeply brainwashed. Yeah, and she was a very light-skinned Jamaican. She had, I think, red. She was a mixed race lady. What we call a light-skinned black woman. She had the pale skin with red hair, and I think she had the freckles also. Yeah, she was of the old British system. And you don't mess with her queen. Yeah. They love their, I mean, that generation, man, they hold her up. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. But nowadays, I think it might be different. And if anyone here is under the Commonwealth nations, things like that, or born in Britain, if you want to share any of your feelings, respectfully, about what that institution represents to you, feel free to respectfully share your experiences or your opinions on the subject. But yeah, you do. The old school loves their queen because that's how they were programmed. But the new generation, it'd be interesting to know how they feel. So that program that this viewer shared with me, um, a lot of people are sharing their anger. In particular, yeah. Well, I think this is important to talk about. Very important, people. I forget the terminology. Um, and I'm new with that terminology. What I heard about, I think just a year ago I heard it. Sometime last year I heard about it for the first time. I think it was. It was relatively recent. In After World War II, um, and I think in particular Jamaica, I would imagine the other Caribbean nations that were under the British flag or control, were were told, well, were requested to come to Britain to fill in the work that needs to be done. Yeah, after World War II, England did get, Britain did get bombed from Germany. They did get bombed, and they needed extra hands to help rebuild Britain and the infrastructure and all that other stuff. And so you had a lot of people uh, working, and they probably felt they did a good job. Well, let me tell you what happened. Um, I think by the 1970s, and again, any of you people who are Jamaican or from the, you know what I'm referring to, that thing that happened to you guys in the other Caribbean nations under the British flag. You were told to go to Britain, and then they were ordering you out of the country and arresting you guys and then telling you that you are now illegal. I was, what? I just learned of this. And so, wow, you are called a British subject or under the Commonwealth, and your work, the work that you perform in your Commonwealth, whether you're living in Jamaica, Belize, all those other nations, your work, your body is being used to support the royal family and Britain as an institution. Your presence, your body, your soul is being used to support that regime, the royal family and the institution, the crown. You support the crown with your labor, with your resources. And then they had the nerve, Britain, or the crown, to order you to leave. They just brought you there. And now they don't want you and they're sending you back. I was dumbfounded when I heard that. It's almost hard to believe. And I said, well, wait a minute. If you are told to, how could you be an illegal if you are under the Commonwealth? How could you say that? See, this is hard for me to understand. If anyone wants to share that information in the comment section, please do. Please educate us. I was not born or raised under that flag. I mean, I'm born in the U.S., and yes, the U.S. was a former colony, well, the 13 colonies. And I lived in one, New York was a colony. Well, actually, New York City was a Dutch colony, and then it was taken over. Okay, I have to give that. It was under the Dutch, New York, and then it was called New Amsterdam, and then it was named New York for this British guy. But anyways, um, it was a system, and to not, it's like you're going into a store to buy something. You give them your money to purchase it, and then they say, "Get out the store. You're not wanted." That is in essence what happened. You were ordered to leave after paying. You have to speak their language. Like I know someone from Dominica. In Dominica, like that was on that island was under slavery at one time, and again you have all these different people from many different African nations now forced to live on this small island and under the British system, and so they develop a language. Yeah, it was under different hands. Um, it was influenced by the French also. Yeah, they speak this, I think that you call it a Creole or a patois. It's like a foreign language, but it's a blend from the history of those people. And they're forbidden to speak that language in school. And the kids are beaten if you start to, like, you learn that language at home. Oh wait. Uh-oh. Sorry, something popped up on the screen. Yeah, okay, so they were beaten. They weren't allowed to, I mean, they learned that the whether it's called Creole or Patois, whatever, that's the language of the people, and they speak that at home. But when they go to school, which is controlled by the British system, they're forced to learn English. And what's interesting that the parents didn't reinforce them to continue speaking their Creole patois, and that the parents would speak it amongst themselves. But when the kids, when they didn't want the kids to know what they were saying, they were talking patois. And that's, I think, in my opinion, taken away from your culture. See, that language is what sustains you to persevere under persecution. So it's like they want us to be them, to speak the British language, to speak the Queen's English, but then they not really accept you. So I'm really staggered that here you were invited, and again, you're under the Commonwealth. That means your money, your resources goes to Britain. So how could they then tell you that you're an illegal? It's not like in the U.S. about like Mexico and the United States. Mexico is not a part of the U.S. They're not a commonwealth of the U.S. They're not a territory of the U.S. Nothing. They're completely separate nation. It's not like them coming in and um, being told to leave, but to tell someone that's part of the Commonwealth nation or the British Commonwealth and then refer to them as foreigners, that is staggering for me to hear. It is a little confusing for me to realize this. So you ask yourself, now that your queen is gone, for 70 years you've been under her spell. 70 years the Commonwealth nations like Jamaica, Belize, South Africa. I found out Rwanda was on the list. I went on the internet to check who are the Commonwealth of Nations. And the British Commonwealth and Rwanda was on the list. I didn't know that. So, where does this leave you, guys? Where does this leave you, India? Are there any Indians in the house? People from India? Are there people from Pakistan and Bangladesh? Are any of you listening? Where does this leave you? I learned from that program that someone sent me a link to, this black YouTuber, referring to this black channel. They said if you add up the people who are under the British Commonwealth and the Commonwealth of Nations, I think it's called, it's over 2 billion people. B as in boy, over 2 billion people. Britain is under Britain. That is a lot. I think they said 1 out of 5 people on the planet are members of that system, the British Commonwealth or the Commonwealth of Nations. That's a lot of people. And so when you look at, like, when she passed, and they were like in their parliament or something, I'm not sure the terminology, but the people who are running the country and all that, when you look at them, most of the people don't look like the people that are under their control. Over 2 billion people are under that country's control. But yet, when you look in their parliament or whatever what it's called, most of those people look like Europeans. Most of those people you see look like Europeans. So how could these people really be represented by them? I mean, if you are, I'm assuming, if you're going to say the people there are subject to you, then how could they not really a part of you? Why aren't they a part of you, and a part of your nation more closely? If you're all really one. Well, that's what I thought. I thought they were, wouldn't they be considered one one? I mean, I don't know. I mean, you see where I'm getting at? It's like, again, you go in a candy store and you give your $1 to get a piece of candy, and then they don't give you the candy. You have to leave the store. You're being used as a resource. You're being used as a resource to make them strong and not you. And they're using these protocols, and they say things like what they mentioned in the program that the person gave me a link to, that you you're oh, how did he word it? You're you're not benefiting. You're really not benefiting. And you're being used as a resource for them. And they're telling you, oh, I remember the term about it's a it's not real. Oh, how do you go? It's not really it's not it's a symbol, that the crown or something is just a symbol. Or the queen, the former queen, was a symbol or something like that. A Roma. What is that word? I think they said a symbol. No, it's not a symbol. But you know what they really mean when they say, oh, it's just a symbol of the, such and such? That they don't want you to realize that you're really being ruled and controlled. So they make it seem like it's not really happening. That's part of the mind control. It is a mind control thing. It is. It's to make you feel that you're really not a slave under their system. So they make you feel, oh, well, it's just, not really happening. It's just a symbol of, she doesn't really control you. The now king of, King Charles III now, he is sovereign over Jamaica. He's sovereign over South Africa. He is the head of those nations. The Commonwealth and the British Commonwealth. He is the sovereign. And with the program, with what I was referred to, and he said it so, he was accurate. He said, okay, if it's just a symbol and not really happening, he says, don't call him your king. Don't refer to him as your king or your highness. And then you're going to find out whether it's symbolic or not. He had that YouTuber had a very good point, people. The point is that you are subject to him, and if you don't address him as king or, your highness, or if you attempt to talk to him first, he's going to put you in place. He's going to put you in place. Could you guys hear me? Please press a 1 for yes. I want to make sure that you're hearing. Just want to make sure you guys hear what I'm saying. The YouTuber had a very good point. You're going to know how people really feel about you when you try to act like you are their equal. And you're going to see very quickly that they're going to say, no, you're not our equal. We are over you. You are our subjects. Meaning that you're a slave. That's what it's all about. It's about control. But they don't want you to feel that you are being under control. They want you to feel that you're part of the family. But when you are told that you're an illegal when you get over there to Britain, when you want to try to move up, when you want to get advanced, all of a sudden it doesn't suit you. If Britain really was about equality, the Commonwealth nations would have more representation in Britain. They would have seats there in Parliament or whatever, because it's like a satellite city. It's just in a remote area, but you're all under the system. But no, that's not what's happening. You are the battery and the resources to keep the belly of the UK all nice and full. You are just a resource for them. You tell them when they come to your country, and you don't address them as King so and so or Your Highness. And you know what could happen? I was thinking about if someone of their Commonwealth or British Commonwealth does something like that, you know what they would try to do, I think? They're going to put you in check. They're going to remind you who's in charge. They may place certain embargoes. Oh, we're going to cut resources to your country. We're not, because many of these places, they have to import goods. Many of these places, they have to import products. And it's expensive. They can cut off your resources so you can't get your food all of a sudden. That could happen, people. The oil. Oh, you need oil. Oh, we're going to cut off oil supply. So now you can't go to work. You can't fill your gasoline. Your cars with gasoline, energy. They can cut it. They could cut off aid. Many of these places rely on some type of aid or assistance. Why do you think in the 1950s, a lot of West Indian people left the Caribbean and moved to Britain or moved to the U.S.? Because the change it was a shifting of power or influence, and many people left because the infrastructure, they benefited from that system, the old system. And so when that system was changing, they left. I think they said 1 out of 3 Jamaicans left in the 1950s. So now you have a new king. And they reminded me that the program that I was watching, that I was referred to, the link, it reminded me, it was telling us, it was another video actually, certain scandals that now King Charles was a part of. King Charles was in close relationship with Savile. What's his name? Jimmy Savile. His name Savile. He was an announcer or something. He had a TV show or something, I think, with children. Some program. He was a speaker, and he was very close with Charles, now King Charles. And he was a known pedophile, this Savile. And then someone else shared a picture that is I was told, owned by the former queen. And it had, what's his name? Ghislaine Maxwell and that guy, Jeffrey Epstein, who was human trafficking those young girls, teenage girls, and he died in prison. That family, you had 2 of them, Ghislaine, Jeffrey, in the home that's owned. It was like a log cabin home that's owned by the queen. I just saw it today. I said, "Oh wow." See, the media shares with you. The media is in cohorts of, when they cover up things like that. They censor the news. So you only hear, over the most of my 40 plus years knowing about the British royal family, they basically just show the good part of them. And then they attacked Princess Diana. Yeah, I believe that she was murdered. I do believe that. The late Princess Diana. I believe she was murdered by people. You know, I do believe that. But you have to ask yourself now. Um, yeah, the program reminded me, hey, this is the new king, and this king has a past, who he was affiliated with, who his brother, their family member, his siblings, who they were associated. How could they be associated with people like that? I thought when you're in that type of family, that you have to always be around certain types of people, and everything is about image. But why didn't they care about that image? Why didn't they care about that image of who you're associating with if they're not a part of it? Would you want to be hanging around with people who did what these people allegedly did? Why would you want that? Unless you're part of it. And you notice that's why that British researcher Ike was that they pulled all his channel from YouTube and social media. He only has now his website. I haven't looked on his channel yet since the former queen's passing. But he for many years exposed that family. It should be really interesting what they say about him. I mean, about the Queen, about the institution, about Charles. It should really be something. Yeah, and I didn't watch. What's his name? Alex Jones show. That would be interesting. What he said. I haven't listened to him since her passing, the Queen's passing. That that would be really interesting to get his point of view. What's going on? Um, but what I also wanted to talk to you about, yeah, I was not born under the British system per se, but the U.S. does have a very strong love affair for that former queen and for that whole institution, because it really does support what they call white supremacy. It does. Um, but I ask myself, I ask you people who are members of the British Commonwealth or the Commonwealth of Nations, of the West Indies and African nations and South Asia, the Pacific Islands. You've been under this monarchy, under her domain for the past 70 years. And you have to ask yourself, is it worth being under their commonwealth? Is it worth it? Is it worth it? What do you get out of that system? Are you an equal under their flag? Or when you go there, do they tell you that you're an alien? Or you're an illegal? You have to really reconsider. Maybe you should reconsider. Maybe you should reconsider that. I know, like, this year, um, the members of the royal family went to visit certain islands in the Caribbean, and I think Belize, and there was some strife. I think what's happening, that you have some of the media, you have people who want to change the system because they want to control. I believe you have communists out there or socialists who are using the history of slavery, oppression, colonialism, and trying to get us angry to break away from uh, these nations, you know. But they want to control you. I think ultimately they want to control you, but they want you to think and do a certain thing, but they're really not interested in your sovereignty, in my opinion. But either way, they do have a good point about, hey, what does that old system, what is it doing for you? Are you treated as an equal? Do you have the same opportunities as everybody else? And is it time to separate? And some of these West Indian nations, they said, I forget which nation, and they said that she'll no longer be our head of state. The queen was the head of that island's state. It's governing. And if you want to, she was the former queen was driven. The casket was driven from Scotland to what was that? To London or something like that, to another location. Um, you have to ask yourself, people, and quickly. See, a link is only strongest at its weak spot. A link, a chain is only as strong as its weak spot. And right now, Britain has a weak spot because it's a changing of the guards, so to speak. They just put in a new ruler. But they still have to do a lot of shifting to make this fully happen. And this might be an opportunity to say, it's time to leave. Ask yourself, is it a time for you to leave now? Or do you want to continue under a system? And like what they made mention, this other video, was that the father of Charles, the former Prince Charles, the father of Prince Charles said that he wants to be, if reincarnation is true, he wants to be reincarnated into a virus and kill off people. Now, I think that's very serious. Wouldn't you say that's kind of serious, the mindset? And that's for King Charles. Now, Prince Charles' father just passed away last year, so he lived with his father, for until the father was 99 years old. He was approaching 100. He just missed his birthday. But just say like he's 100. So for all those years, you're being taught this mindset to want to be a virus so you can kill people. So he had that as a mentor, and then he had Jimmy Savile, who is said to be a pedophile and did other horrendous things as his role model. Is he really equipped to run Britain as the king? And when you want to be under a king like that, with that type of training, you better think really quickly, because this might be your only chance of escaping. This might be your only chance of escaping the system. I mean, if you like something, you stay. If you don't like something, and if the new generation of where you live in the Commonwealth, if they're not benefiting, do you really have power and strength? You may want to consider leaving that system and keeping your resources. And you're going to see how quick you're considered an equal when, if you do something like that, what can happen? They cut off your resources. They can say, put an embargo on your island. Let's say you live on a tiny island and you rely on imports to sustain you. They may block it. They may cause other troubles. But you ask yourself, what is more important? Do you want to live under a system of oppression, if you may feel that way? Do you want to feel like you always have to be a subject and have to call someone your highness, or have to wait to be talked to first before you respond? Do you want to live like that? Do you want your kids to be under that? Do you feel that you have to look like those people in order to get ahead? Meaning, do you feel like you have to bleach your hair, bleach your skin, get blue contact lenses to look like those people, so that you feel like you're being treated equal? If you say yes to any of these things, you may want to reconsider who you call your highness. If you call someone your highness, you're saying that they are over you. Shouldn't they represent you and protect you? Why aren't you being fully represented in their government? These are things that you should ask yourself. Why, when you look at their governing body, how come you don't see yourself being represented so much? If 1 out of 5 people on this planet are under the British Commonwealth or the Commonwealth of Nations, shouldn't you be the most populated, represented group? The largest number? You have to ask yourself. That's a big power. To represent over 2 billion people is a big number. But why are you in poverty? Why are you in poverty? Why are you begging bread? Why are you in the position that you are in? Could it be that you are being bewitched by the system that says you're just a subject? You're not really one of us. You're not of the bloodline. So we don't have to do anything for you. Whatever happened to those? Someone mentioned about these children in Canada. They were indigenous children in Canada, and she and the former queen and other people went to this facility, and those children, about 10 or 12 children, left with them. Those children were never seen again. Whatever happened to those children? And this scandal came out that you had children who were buried. Whatever happened to those kids? All those dead people, and this institution was supposed to train them and teach them British ways, whatever, but it killed them. Many of them. Masked graves. How could you have a massive number of people dead and no one wonder what happened? See, if there's skeletons, if these things really happen, why aren't you really discussing it? I mean, people are discussing. I mean, the victims' family is discussing, I'm sure. But globally, to be discussed. If this family, if some members of that family are committing these acts against indigenous people or African people, maybe you should really evaluate your relationship with that person, and maybe you need to change your relationship. Maybe it's time to wake up. Yeah, things are happening here in the States. And I think other African nations are becoming now sensitized because they're hearing all these news that's happening in the United States, what's happening with some black people here. And you're waking up because of things that you realize and what's happening to you. I think of other, countries in like what they call Latin America, Brazil in particular. What about their freedom? Why is that the massive number of people who are in poverty, why are they remaining in poverty? The former colonial powers, how are they doing in comparison? How could it be that someone that's living on land that is so massive and so rich with resources produce so much poverty, and then you got a small piece of land in Europe that's thriving? I think we are being seduced and bewitched by a system and making us feel we're unworthy for wealth and power. You may want to retrain your thinking. It may be time for you to rethink your role. And if you are going to reconsider your role, do it quickly, in my opinion, because the strongest link is the weakest link. And right now there is a weak link because you have a death of a queen and you're now bringing in a king. They're very vulnerable at this time. And in that vulnerability, it may be the perfect opportunity for you to leave. But if you're going to do something like that, in my opinion, these are just thoughts. I mean, people do what they want to do. And you have a right to think how you want to think. Well, it's just thoughts that are coming to my mind that We all want to wake up. Some of us want to wake up. Some of us want to grow. And it may be time to change the guard of your life. And you may have to say enough is enough. That you no longer want to participate. You no longer want to bow down. You don't want to say your highness. You don't want to curtsy anymore. You no longer want to support an institution that treats you like a foreigner. It's okay to be sovereign. It's okay to be you. They're not as powerful as you think. They're not as bright as you think. The only thing that they have is the illusion of power. And the power they actually are getting from you by you when you give your resources and your attention to them. You give them attention, and that's how they get bigger and stronger. You stop paying attention to them, and they're going to shrink. They're going to shrink like a hemorrhoid. They are going to shrink like a hemorrhoid. When you call them certain names like Your Highness, you are strengthening them. When you deny your native language or your native religion, you make them stronger. If they really are head of the church, the Anglican Church, then why didn't they speak out on those pedophiles? Or those children in those in Canada, those indigenous children of Canada, there are a whole bunch of dead kids. Where was their God then? Why aren't they speaking up? You know what? It doesn't the Anglican Church, aren't they supposed to be about Jesus? Isn't it about Jesus? Or maybe the church they're really referring to, maybe it's a church of Satan, a church of the devil. You got to ask yourself, what church do they support? On paper, they claim that they're supporting one thing, but in practice, they are supporting something else probably. So you have to really evaluate this. They're not as strong and they're not as smart as you think. They just know how to manipulate and use mental warfare over you. If you're going to leave quickly. You have a right to speak out. You have a right to speak out and say, you know, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. That's your choice. That is your choice. It's going to be a major, I sense there's going to be a lot of major things happening on the planet. And what happened with the Queen passing on, yes, it's inevitable what happened to her. She was looking frail. But I think they're all like, it's as if one by one they're signing out. They say, hey, I don't want to be here when it happens. I believe a lot of these people who are going, they know what's going to happen soon. And I believe something tragic is going to happen under this new regime. Yes, it's a new world regime that's trying to take over. And a lot of these people, they're not just dying because they're getting old. They're getting out of the system. They know what's going to happen next. They want out. they want out. And you know, in life, I believe you don't really die. I mean, yes, your body dies, but your consciousness lives on. And there are technologies that allow you to move your mind even in a computer. You don't think maybe they might have downloaded her consciousness somewhere? She's the longest reigning monarch in that country, which is a world power. Do you think possibly they might have downloaded her consciousness? I mean, it happened so quickly. They actually have that capability of doing that. They're not just going to just have a go. They need her knowledge. What's going to happen is going to happen quickly in Britain. I don't think King Charles is going to be king for long. I think they ultimately want William in there, in the seat. Because, see, I think with Charles, he's too old school, and they want to seduce you by beauty, by looks. So they got a younger guy, get Prince William and his young wife and very young children. They want you to focus on that. They don't want you to focus on a 73-year-old man and his former mistress. Yes, she is his mistress. She was the mistress, I should say. And that is the truth. That is the truth. And now she is the queen. She's the new queen, or queen consort, something like that. She's the queen. So really, it's going to be a quick shift, in my opinion. Yeah, they're going to get Prince William in there. I believe they're going to get. What do you guys think? I'm doing a lot of the talking here. What do you guys think? Do you think that they're going? They might have Charles now, but I don't think it's going to be long. And they're going to use Prince William because they want to keep the people attracted to the illusion of beauty, strength, and power. But they don't want to turn off the younger people. I mean, they don't want to turn off completely the older folks. But they have a young generation. And to keep that younger generation preoccupied, put in a younger face. And I think that's what's going to happen. That's what I think was going to happen. Because, see, people are going to be pissed. People are angry at the old system. They have a lot of skeletons in their closet. And maybe one by one, these Commonwealth nations will wake up and start to address those questions publicly, and to save the crown, or the monarchy. They're going to use a younger face, because the illusion is, oh well, they can relate to me now. Have someone on my level, that I could relate to, and so they want to stay in the fold. I think if they keep Charles in it, that people are going to want to break away. They don't want to stay. But I think for Prince William, they'll stay in the union. I mean, this is just what I think what could happen. But to the African nations, to the Caribbean nations, to the Asian nations that are under Britain's domain, to reevaluate and use this opportunity to really grow and develop to your new self, to a powerful self, to learn to stop emulating, stop trying to look like them by bleaching your skin, straightening your hair, bleaching your hair, and the like. Getting blue contact lenses, wearing one of those white wigs. You want something that's going to represent you and your interests. Are you being represented? Or are you walking in shame because of history? Are they even teaching your history what happened? I had no knowledge about the 1950s with a lot of the Caribbean nations there. They were invited to Britain to work, and then they're called illegals and are thrown out of the country, even though you were invited and you're part of the whole infrastructure of the government. Start really evaluating people. Start really, really evaluating what is best for you, what's best for your children. Do you want to continue slavery and the legacy of slavery? If not, you may need to reevaluate your relationship with that crown. If you're going to do something, you should do it very quickly as a strategy to get your freedom. And yes, freedom is going to cost. It may cost you certain things initially. It may cost you something initially. And is it worth it? I think freedom is always worth it. True freedom. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about this whole process, what I talked about. What it represents to you as a subject of the British Commonwealth, Commonwealth of Nations, or you born and raised in Britain. Is it time? Is it time for you to get to the next level? Let me know what you think. And whatever what your choice is your choice. It's something you have to decide for yourself. It's what you are comfortable with. What is your heart telling you? So I thank you again for this opportunity to talk to you guys. Thank you so much. So with that last note, have a fantastic day. Peace, love, joy, and power to all of us. Bye-bye.